The Great Recession lasted from December of 2007 to June of 2009. It caused a dramatic decrease in the housing market, consumer spending, and massive job loss. The dramatic decline in housing prices that began in late 2006, a distinctive feature of the Great Recession, is its intimate connection to the housing sector. Indeed, many will argue that the Great Recession was triggered by the widespread failure of risky mortgage products. The Great Recession began first with the bursting of an $8 trillion housing bubble. Chaos triggered by the bursting of the bubble also led to collapse in business investment and a decrease in consumer spending. As consumer spending and business investment dried up, massive job loss followed. In 2008 and 2009, the U.S. labor market lost 8.4 million jobs, or 6.1% of all payroll employment.
What company were you working for at the time of the recession?
Guardian Mortgage Documents.
And what did that company do?
We did quite a few things. The biggest one we did was provide the actual closing documents that the banks required for loans, residential loans.
So you had a lot of interactions with the banks regarding a lot of the financial documents required at this time for loans.
Yes, so banks have specific requirements, and then it's based upon per state. They have special laws in place. So we would have to take that information, put it into actual document packages that we would put together and be able to provide for closers when they're closing, signing with the borrowers.
And did you see a change in these kind of documents and the interactions between the banks and the consumers at the time of the Great Recession?
So leading up to it, we definitely saw some changes. There were a lot of different loan packages that were getting offered that you don't normally see. So a standard loan, a good loan, is a 30-year loan. So you get a loan, you have it for 30 years, you pay off your home. We were starting to see things like a 50-year loan. So a user would come in and buy a house, they'd have 50 years to pay it off. That's a long time. Even if you're in your 20s, by the time you're paying off your house, you're in your 70s. So that's a pretty long extension on a loan. We were also seeing a lot of increases in odd loan types called balloons. So it's not a very popular type of loan, but we were seeing more of them come through, where you would have what's called a 5-1 balloon loan. So for 5 years, you're paying a set loan amount, a monthly payment. And then in that 6th year, you're paying off the rest of that loan, which could be anywhere up to like $100,000, depending on what's left. They're just very difficult loans for people to actually be able to pay off.
And what exactly do you know about the Great Recession?
Well, from where I was at, we saw a lot of loans coming in. The requirements to get a loan were less strict than they are now. It's one of the changes that has occurred afterwards. So anyone could walk in and be given a loan. People that didn't have stable incomes, that didn't have reliable money sources, jobs, whatever, would be given these crazy loans that there's no way they could repay. Well, and of course, they reached that point where they couldn't repay it. So houses were coming up for foreclosures, banks were not getting the money that they needed, though they had lended out, at least $200,000 a pop for these loans. And it just started to fall apart as people were unable to meet the requirements that they had signed up for.
So when these loans started defaulting, how exactly did that affect you and your job?
So it's a snowball effect, right? I mean, it starts off affecting the borrowers. They lose their house. The banks get affected because they don't have that money anymore. They put all this money out, they're not getting anything back, and there really isn't a way to get it from people that don't have it. And then it starts to snowball in the sense that you take it up the next level. Then the people that provide the closing documents, which I was a part of that group, title companies, the brokers, the real estate agents, they can potentially get affected because now they're not going to be able to have as many borrowers, get loans. So then the whole market starts to slow down. And as such, what affected me is it slowed down to the point my company started going bankrupt because it wasn't just the Guardian Mortgage Documents, but there were also title companies that were owned by the same group. The title companies were closing their doors. The title companies tend to be the ones that provide a certain level of insurance as well as, do the actual closings with the borrowers. So lot of businesses were starting to shut down, and as such, my company had to downsize, so I was let go.
The number of job openings decreased 44%, while the employment declined by 5%. At the end of the recession in June of 2009, the unemployment rate was at 9.5%.
Knowing that the banks were starting to get in trouble because the federal government did have to come after the banks because they were starting to fail. And of course, our whole economy is based on the banks working in the whole credit system. It was going to be a matter of time that big changes had to be made.
The Great Recession was one of the most devastating for employment compared to the decades before. Even after the economy stopped contracting in the summer of 2009, its growth has not been nearly strong enough to create the jobs needed to simply keep pace with normal population growth, let alone put back to work the backlog of workers who lost their jobs during the collapse. This job loss during the Great Recession has meant that family incomes have dropped, poverty has risen, and adults as well as children have lost health insurance. The bursting of the housing bubble and the drop of the stock market has meant family wealth has dropped dramatically as well. This feature highlights the impact of the Great Recession on the labor market and on working families.